Remaining under motions and resolutions, Senator Gazelka.
Madam President, pursuant to Rule 26, I designate that the following bill, House File 30, be made for special orders for immediate consideration.
Senator Miller.
Thank you, Madam President and members. House File 30 would allow liquor stores to be open on Sundays during the hours of 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. House File 30 would also prohibit deliveries, soliciting, and merchandising on Sundays by wholesalers. Members, this bill simply would give liquor stores the option to be open on Sundays, but it does not require them to be open on Sundays. Also, current law allows local municipalities to opt out of allowing liquor stores to be open on Sundays, and they also have the authority to be more restrictive on the hours of operation than what's in House File 30. With that, Madam President, I'll stand happy to stand for questions.
Further discussion on House File 30. Discussion. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to speak in support of House File 30. This is an issue that obviously we have been talking about for a very long time. I know there are a lot of local sensitivities, and I appreciate that Senator Miller's bill addresses many of the concerns that have been expressed by local business owners and others who would be affected by this change. I know we are all concerned and sensitive to the business concerns of small businesses, but I would point out, when I talk to people in my community living very close to a border state, there are small businesses who feel like they are constrained from being able to compete effectively because they do not currently have that option. So I rise in support. This is a strong grassroots issue. We hear loudly from our constituents that this is something that is supported, and it is time. It is a distraction. For many of us, we'd rather be talking about other issues of greater significance to our communities and our state. And let us pass this, and let us move on with the important work that we have to do this session. Thank you.
Further discussion, Senator Schoen.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to offer the A50 amendment.
Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Schoen moves to amend House File number 30 as amended pursuant to Rule 45 adopted by the Senate February 23, 2017 as follows, page 1 after line 17. This is the A50 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Schoen.
Madam President, since we're working on Sundays, I think it's due time that we just repeal all blue laws for Sunday, and this would include the auto dealers. To paraphrase Senator Miller, simply would give auto dealers the option to be open on Sundays, but would not require it.
Further discussion on the A50 amendment, Senator Osmek.
Madam President, I rise to a point of order.
State your point.
Madam President, I wish to make a point of order on germaneness. Rule 35.2 or 35.2 sections 1 and 2 of the Senate rules. This amendment is substantially different than the subject matter at hand. It also is intended to accomplish a substantially different purpose than the original part of the bill.
Further advice, Senator Schoen.
Madam President and Senator Osmek, I'm not really sure how repealing the state's government ban on making sales of, or banning business doing their work on Sunday, how that is not germane. The original, it is a commerce bill, and that is commerce that it's related to, and it's about Sunday. Simply, that's it. So I would ask that you rule that it is germane, Madam President.
Further advice, Senator Osmek.
Thank you, Madam President. Senator Schoen, you're trying to do a repealing of sections 168.275 and 168.2 276. That's not in the bill itself. This bill, Senator Miller's bill, deals with modifying state statute section 340A.504, subdivision 2. That is substantially different than the intent of this bill, and therefore, Madam President, I would request that you rule it is not germane.
Further advice? The point is well taken, and the amendment is not germane.
Madam President,
Senator Schoen.
I'd like to appeal the ruling of the chair and ask for a roll call.
The appeal has, or the ruling of the chair has been appealed. There will be a roll call. The question is, shall the decision of the President be the judgment of the Senate? Oh. A green vote will uphold the ruling of the chair, and a red will not withhold or not uphold the ruling of the chair. The Secretary will take the roll.
Well, doing what he needs to do, just like everybody else. Ron. We're not under call. There's the vote right there. We're not under call.
There being 34 ayes and 32, oh, I'm sorry, Secretary will close the roll. There being 34 ayes and 32 nays, the decision of the President is sustained. Further
Madam
discussion?
President, I move a
Senator
call of the
Rice.
Senate for the balance of the bill.
Senate is under call.
No, no, no. I mean, you know what I mean.
You know, these Metro liberals need to lighten up a bit.
You know, I talked about my wedding also. We had a king cake party at my brother's yesterday. And,
I miss getting a king cake. I used to have it shipped in all the time.
my nephew, is a pagan and for the Minnesota Lynx, but his other job is working in a small independent liquor store. And he said, oh man, I'm not going to work for them. I said, "Dan's not going to never work for them." Oh yes, you just said it. But I said, but Glenn,
Senator Rest?
I move that further proceedings on the roll call be dispensed with and the sergeant be instructed to bring in the absent members.
On that motion, all in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The motion does prevail. Further discussion on House File 30. Senator Thomasoni.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, some of you may have received the same email I'm going to read right now, but this seems to be a very good summary of why we should not pass Sunday liquor sales here. And this is from a person from Nevis, so it's not even from my district, but I think she hit the nail on the head in this email. I wanted to contact you regarding the upcoming vote on Sunday liquor sales. I see no reason to pass this bill. I've been employed at a city-owned liquor store in a tourist-oriented part of Minnesota for nearly 13 years. I have witnessed the purchasing patterns / habits of locals as well as tourists visiting the area. Locals buy the liquor they want for Sunday on Saturday. They've been doing that forever. During the summer months, most tourists come to town on Saturdays. One of their first stops is the liquor store. If they are from Minnesota, they know we are closed on Sunday and they buy accordingly. If they are not from Minnesota, they nearly always ask if we are open on Sundays. When we say no, they simply purchase on Saturday the products that they want for Sunday. Winter sales slow considerably where tourists are concerned. Snowmobilers and fisher people visit on the weekends, usually arriving on Saturdays when they buy liquor for their short visit. Rarely, if ever, do customers complain that we aren't open on Sunday. When that happens, the customer is usually from Wisconsin. I can only speak from my experience, but I cannot see where Sunday liquor sales will increase revenue. The majority of Sunday shoppers will be those who have made the same purchase on Saturday, and the increased cost of staffing the store with 2 or 3 employees on what would be a very slow day has to be considered. Speaking of employees, Sunday has long been a day most people consider to be family time, a day when there are no school activities, a day when most 8 to 5 businesses in rural areas are closed. A 10 a.m. opening pretty much eliminates the opportunity for employees to attend church, enjoy a family meal, to socialize, be part of the community, and more without taking a vacation day. Some would say, well, just don't be open on Sunday. You know as well as I that pressure and competition will force small stores to be open, even if it means they do so at a loss. It seems that the decision you and your peers will need to make depends on where your priorities are, with employees / families and quality of life, or with those who want to buy booze on Sunday. Members, that's a really good description of why we should not pass this bill. You know, alcohol is maybe one of the most destructive substances we have in our society, and it is very widely available to anybody 6 days a week, and it's been that way in Minnesota for 159 years. You know, I come from the Iron Range where a real lot of the small towns have lost their Main Street businesses. They've basically been decimated. We used to shop on the Main Street all the time for everything that we needed, and now there's virtually no stores open on Main Streets in small towns anymore. In fact, just in one block in my hometown of Chisholm, there are 13 empty storefronts. I don't need another empty store, and this could possibly result from that because this woman is right. What will happen is they'll have to open on Sunday, and they'll have to employ some people, and there's absolutely no guarantee whatsoever that they will actually sell more than they would have had they just bought it on Saturday. And you know, most people who want to have alcohol on Sunday want to have alcohol on Sunday because they're planning some kind of a family get-together or something at the lake, and they know they're going to do it, and so they buy it now, and they say on Sunday, this is what we have for Sunday because Sundays aren't open. And if they really, really, really do need alcohol, well, then they can go down to the bar and have a drink, or maybe they should go see a doctor. But quite frankly, I think that this is one of those kind of things that we are going to be forcing on people to open. The small stores that's is in this bill that says, well, you don't have to open on Sunday. That's exactly why they would go broke, because if they don't open on Sundays, the people that normally shop there will find a big box store to go to, and they may never go back to that small liquor store again, and that'll be the demise of these small stores. And we don't need that in rural Minnesota. We don't need that in Minnesota at all. And members, I just want to beg you all to vote no on this. We don't need Sunday sales in Minnesota.
Further discussion on House File 30. Senator Simonson.
Thank you, Madam President, and I rise today in opposition to House File 30, and I feel that it's important that I make some comments as to why. Many ask the question about the fact that I represent a fairly large city, municipal center, in close opposition to Wisconsin, and how this bill, if it's passed, might affect a lot of the consumers in my town not having to travel to Wisconsin on Sundays to buy liquor. And I don't pretend to believe that I can convince any of you to change your vote, but I do want to tell you a brief story to the 20 other members that this is your first time in the Senate, Minnesota Senate. And out of those, us 21 freshman senators, there are 5 of us that come from the other body, and that's where I gained my experience on this particular issue. I was first elected to the House in 2012, and in 2013, as many of you know, we were faced with a vote on Sunday sales. It always comes up as an amendment to some omnibus bill or in some other fashion, either in committee or on the floor. And I thought in 2013 that the right thing to do was to support it, and I voted yes. Sometimes here in the legislature, it's easy to get lost in the hubbub of all the things that are going on, and you forget that sometimes it's important to reach out to your constituents. And on that day, I forgot, but I heard about it, as many of you will as you take votes on individual bills. You'll hear about things from your constituents, either in support of the position that you took or in opposition to the position that you took. And in that year, in 2013, I heard a lot of feedback from my district about why did you vote yes on Sunday sales. So we came back in 2014. I decided I wanted to really get to the bottom of it. And I sent out letters to every single off-sale license holder in the city of Duluth. And there are a lot of them. And I essentially asked them what their positions as small business owners were on sales of liquor on Sunday. And I will tell you to a T, every single one that responded to my letter said, we are opposed to this. Not only are we opposed to this, we thank you for asking. So I took it a couple of steps further, and I actually went and visited with some of them to really understand what the issue was for them. And these are small businesses in Duluth. And I imagine there are small businesses in small towns all across Minnesota that are feeling the same thing. But they said, you know what? We don't want to be open on Sundays. But we're going to be forced to be open on Sundays if this law passes. And that's probably true. There are big box retailers that are already open on Sundays just waiting for the opportunity to sell liquor, should this law pass. And the small businesses are going to be forced to follow suit. And they're going to lose revenue. That's a real thing to them. The people that they employ are real people, real Minnesotans depending on a real job with benefits. These are good jobs, members. I would just encourage you to think about that as you move forward with the vote, especially to the 21 of us that are new here in the Senate. I encourage a no vote. Thank you.
Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Madam President and members. I too arise asking for folks to vote against this bill. couple of reasons, there's several reasons that I do not support Sunday liquor, but just a couple of them I'd like to point out is I've talked to several employees in my district, and they're really quite concerned. They appreciate the fact that they have this job. They enjoy working with people and meeting people, but they're really concerned about working on Sunday, giving up that one day of family time they have, whether it be just to spend family time at their home, going to a sporting event, or going to their local church. They feel we're going to be taking that away from them, and I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Another issue is our small liquor stores. Most of the folks that I have talked to feel what's going to happen is they're going to be open for one more day. They're going to add the expenses of the overhead, the expense of the employment of the person, and the sales at the end of the week are going to be basically the same. So we're going to shift the sales from 6 days to 7 days. And so what happens is if that's a private individual business, it makes it much tougher for them, and eventually we're going to see some of these small people disappear. If it's a municipal store and they have their sales spread over 7 days, what we're going to see there is we're going to see less income, which affects the tax base and the property taxes in those small communities. So with that said, there are several other reasons, but I'll leave it at that, and I would ask for people to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Senator Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I'm probably one of the last people you'd expect to vote in favor of this bill. As a former minister, I've seen many families severely hurt and abused because of alcohol. Both my biological and stepfather were alcoholics. We stayed away from home as much as possible. I have friends that own area liquor store. At least they used to be friends. I'm not sure we're friends anymore because they know how I'm going to vote on this. I don't allow alcohol in my home, and I only sip a little bit of wine once in a while. I voted twice against this bill, and a constituent came to me, tattoos all over his body, long hair, and he said to me, "Tell me why you don't want Sunday liquor." And I gave him those reasons I just gave to you. And he said with great respect, "Well, I can really understand that. Would you just reconsider for one reason? Freedom." And he was so polite about it, I thought, I really am going to do that. I'm going to reconsider this. And as I did, that was the one ingredient I didn't give the weight it should have had. The freedom of a private business to operate when they feel they need to. I don't see, as I was concerned about, an increase in liquor, because I don't like liquor myself, but I don't see an increase in doing this. I do see a safety factor, though. As I talked to one of my chief of police, I said, "Is it a safety factor?" And he said, "Well, no." He said, "Except maybe Saturday nights when the liquor stores are about to close, and maybe a guy's had too many and he realizes he can't get it till the next day and he takes off towards the liquor store when he shouldn't be driving." So there is a safety factor. This hourly thing I think is ridiculous, but so be it. It's not a big deal if you want 11 to 6 or 10 to 6. I don't really care. Unless abusive, I think the government needs to stay out of private businesses, and this bill gives local control. So I urge a yes vote on Sunday liquor.
Senator Schoen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and we did have a chance to expand that freedom for businesses to operate when they wanted to. What I would like to say, Madam President, is when the House took up this bill, I get a lot of emails that talk about priorities. What are your priorities in St. Paul? And on that day, when they passed Sunday sales, I think many of us got trolled on Twitter, social media about this bill. And some of those organizations that are regularly involved here, I want to speak to them, because that was the day that the second round of anti-Semitic attacks happened around our country, including in St. Paul. And those people that contacted me, I didn't find any statement about coming out against those anti-Semitic attacks or attacks on people because of their religion or whatever their background might be, but they were all about Sunday sales. We'll see where the vote comes down, but I would like people to remember priorities as we move forward. Don't forget about people, that if this is your only priority, but you can't remember folks that were attacked because of their religion or otherwise, while we're here at the same time, shame on you.
Senator Lane.
Thank you, Madam President. I will follow up with some of these who have said that there's a deeper concern here. We can say, oh, it's just old-fashioned. Oh, I want it for the convenience. Oh, it's so simple, just be open. But as always, you must follow the money. And I see a key job of government as making sure that the very wealthy and powerful do not crush the regular citizens. This legislation is brought to us by big liquor, and the result, as shown in other states, is the lack of competition from smaller stores because they are closed. The mom and pop stores, most of the municipal liquor stores, as I have in my district, and remember, the municipal liquor stores keep down property taxes. Their profits go to support the property tax. And so I must consider the effect on society overall, and the effect on workers, and the effect on small businesses, and I choose always the small businesses over the big money.
Senator Westrom.
Madam President, members, we talk about freedom, and I think many of us say, yeah, that's a great thing. But why I stand today and ask you to reconsider if you're voting yes, but to vote no and keep the current regulation scheme in place for our liquor sales. One reason is, let's go back in history in this country. And why does Minnesota have this system? And why do every state have a particular scheme of statutes different than most retail products? And that's because it's liquor, it's alcohol. And this country went so far to one side that they actually passed a constitutional amendment known as prohibition because of the dangers and the bad outcomes for those that can't control or drink in moderation. Well, that extreme soon was met with lots of black market, bootlegging, underground markets. And as we all know the history, they repealed prohibition about 10 years later. But when they did that, they also left the states with great discretion in overseeing and regulating this industry of alcohol. Because while prohibition was an extreme that didn't make sense in its day, and probably still doesn't make sense today, we have liquor regulations across the board, and we have what we call a three-tier system. I used to chair the committee in the House that overseen the alcohol licensing and regulations, and in doing that, got a little deeper dive into why do we even control this. There's another aspect of regulation that we have, and nobody's talking about it, but if you want freedom, then open it up and put the liquor in the grocery stores. Sell wine in grocery, because it's about freedom. Let all the 7- and 8-year-olds ask their mom, what's that? Or dad. Put it in the grocery stores. But we don't do that here in Minnesota. And perhaps you could make a stronger argument for that being a relaxing of the regulation than what we're doing today. But the reason we have a three-tiered system is to have checks and balances and have much more control and oversight on liquor and alcohol consumption in our state. And it all comes down to individuals being responsible, knowing when they've had enough or too much, and making best choices for themselves, which doesn't always happen. But we, as government, do have some broad parameters in place. And one of those has been, okay, liquor sales Monday through Saturday is enough liquor for the system, for the individual, for the family. And there's always been an esteem of Sundays in Minnesota in our history that we don't sell liquor on Sundays. You can drink it, you can go to a bar, you can go to a restaurant. But one, you're not going to have to be open as a liquor store. We're not going to allow it. And two, might be a day to dry out. Or like many of my constituents have reminded me with this debate moving forward, they are small business owners. They are members that and families that like to go to church. And they don't see a need for liquor stores being open on Sunday. And they just simply say, it is a day of rest. Please keep the liquor stores closed on Sunday. And so members, if you're doing this in the name of freedom, then I would suggest you offer some more amendments, because there could be a lot more freedom if that's what you're trying to achieve. But there's a reason overall why we have much tighter regulations on alcohol, because it is a product unlike most others. And so that's the reason we have it. As I've pondered this, and I understand there's a freedom side of things, but if there's a place for government to at least set some boundaries that are reasonable and respect blue laws, that means no sale on Sunday. We're down to about liquor and automobiles. But that, if you look at society, opening up others hasn't made life slower and simpler. It's probably been more destructive for the family unit than less. And so how do you think this is going to help the family unit and the day of rest if we open this up? Think about that as we make our final votes.
Senator Bach.
Well, thank you, Madam President, members. And I know this issue really kind of started as one of border cities. And Senator Miller, I understand that representing a border city, there might be an issue there. It might be more of a perception. But why the bill goes beyond border cities is a mystery to me. I also know that this isn't going to resolve the border city problem. Don't vote for this because you think it's going to help your border city in Minnesota. Here's my example. A number of years ago, I was in Superior, Wisconsin for a meeting for work, and I thought, well, gee, I should pick up a little alcohol to bring home. And I stopped at a liquor store in Superior, and much to my surprise, at the bottom of the receipt, it said, you saved X number of dollars over buying your alcohol in Duluth. It's on the receipt. Because the truth is, the sales tax on alcohol in Minnesota is, in the case of Duluth, probably 5%, maybe 6% higher in Duluth than it is in Superior, and the public knows that. Now to my main point. And I often wonder if my staff kind of roll their eyes when at staff meetings from time to time I'll tell them, guess what I woke up thinking this morning? And I think most of us dream, but for some reason I don't remember mine, but I wake up thinking things. And after the House passed this last week, Friday morning, I woke up and when I opened my eyes, I thought, what is this going to do to my little hometown? And I closed my eyes back again, and I went back to when I was in school. And my little town out on the highway boasted our sign that said we had 714 people lived in our little town. So with my eyes closed, I took a walk down the main street. The Ashawa is gone. Cooper's Cafe is gone. The Musich Super Value, who had 9 children in our school, is gone. Bob Dixon's Barbershop is gone. Hoken and Hardware is gone. Ortendal Jewelry is gone. Bajari Appliance is gone. Our little drive-in root beer stand and our Tasty Freeze are gone. Our co-op store that had hardware and clothing and groceries is gone. Miller's IGA is gone. Hilton and Number is gone. Chase Lumber is gone. Johnson's One Stop, where you used to be able to buy a motorcycle or a snowmobile or recreational stuff, is gone. Evergreen is gone. Even our bakery is gone. We're all there when I was a kid, and the list is much longer than that. And in its place on our little main street are a whole bunch of empty lots and a bunch of empty storefronts. Members, all across rural Minnesota, the big boxes and the regional centers are changing our little rural communities, and they will never be the same again. Our school is even gone. And I got an email from a constituent on Friday, and he said this. He said, when we moved to Cook in 1962 from Mountain Iron, things have truly changed. You could get everything you needed in Cook. Heck, the co-op store had a $3.5 million sales in 1985 when my dad retired as manager. People even came from Britt and Virginia to shop, and the other stores in town. Now, other than the highway and the hospital, our town is dead. I hope your Senate votes Sunday liquor down. I've been reading stories from all across rural Minnesota, and they are worried. Members, you're probably not going to take a bigger vote this session that breaks more urban and rural than this. So I called my city administrator when I got out of bed, and I said, how much did our little municipal liquor store generate in net proceeds last year? And she said, $140,000, and we employ 5 people. I said, well, how much is the city's levy that they levy on property taxes? And she said, $385,000. I said, well, how many homes in our little town? And she said, well, between 150 and 200. I said, well, have you got a calculator there? She said, yeah. I said, well, let's round up to 200 and divide that into the $140,000 that our little municipal liquor store generates for the city. She typed in the numbers and she said it's $700. Members, as sales go down in little municipal liquor stores, property taxes go up. And the people advocating for this bill that tell you that, oh, this won't hurt the little mom and pop stores because it won't add to their labor because they don't have to be open, or the municipal doesn't have to be open. Well, let me explain to you what really is happening in these little rural towns that are, or main streets are in decline. Is the regional centers, and I'm including the small ones of maybe 10, 12,000 people that are maybe 30, 40 miles away from your little town. That's where the big boxes are locating. And the regional center to the little community I live in is Virginia. Target is there, Walmart is there, Menards is there, and big liquor is going to come there too. So as citizens in our little rural towns commute to the regional centers, because guess what? You can't buy a pair of socks in the little town I live in anymore. Can't buy a pair of jeans. Can't do anything with any dry cleaning. There's all these things that you can't get in these little rural towns anymore, so people are forced to drive to the regional centers. And as long as you're there, Well, heck, you might as well get your hair cut. You might as well pick up your groceries. They're cheaper than our little store. Well, heck, we can get alcohol. Let's pick that up as long as we're at the mall in the regional center. And the little mom and pop grocery store at home, whose Sunday is their only day off, is forced to either stay open and not have a day off and incur the additional labor cost, or lose market share in what is already a community whose population is on the decline. Members, there is a reason this has never passed since statehood, because this is about trying to preserve a little piece of the market share for little small mom and pop businesses. Because you all know who's lobbying this, the big guys. You really think they want to incur the additional labor cost of being open on Sunday? No, what they want is the additional market share. Because if they can take the little guy out, it's more for them. So members, I want to ask for your no vote on this bill. And Madam President, and to Senator Hall's point, if we're talking about freedom, and to Senator Westrum's point, if we really want to do what people want here in the metropolitan area, because it seems like the emails I basically am all getting are from here in the metro area saying, vote yes. So if we're doing this because people want it, well then let's give them what they really want. So Madam Chair, I'd like to offer the A53 amendment.
Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Bach moves to amend House File Number 30 as amended pursuant to Rule 45 adopted by the Senate February 23, 2017 as follows. Section 2, Minnesota statutes. This is the A53 amendment.
To the amendment, Senator Bach.
Well, Madam President, I used to sit over in, I think it was in Senator Weber's desk. And my seatmate at the time, Senator Scheid, who's passed on, became a good friend in the years that I sat next to her. She spent 20 years introducing bills to sell wine in grocery stores. So I know it's got some popularity because I got to know her and I got to see some of the statistics, the polling data. Oh, people would love to buy their bottle of wine when they pick up their groceries. And so, members, what the amendment does is it says in the 7-county metropolitan area, a municipality can issue a license to a grocery store to sell wine on Sundays. So, or no, to sell wine every day, excuse me. Because right now we don't allow them to do that. I think it would be immensely popular, the polling data I've seen on it. So if it's that popular to be open Sunday, can you imagine being able to buy your wine any day of the week when you pick up a couple things at the grocery store at the end of the day? So, Madam President, I appreciate your yes vote. This will give the people in the metropolitan area that really, really have an appetite to buy alcohol, this will make it really convenient for them because they'll be able to pick up their wine, not liquor, just wine, at the grocery store after work on their way home.
Further
I'd like
discussion.
a roll call vote, Madam President.
Roll call has been requested. Roll call granted. Further discussion on the A53 amendment. Senator Limmer to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam President. Would the author yield?
Senator Bach will yield. Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Madam President. I listened carefully, Senator Bach, to your discussion about how you characterized your small town and how that municipal liquor store is key to generating revenue for your city. So the question I would have, if you have more outlets selling more liquor in your little town, wouldn't that mean that there'd be more sales away from the municipal liquor store that you were so protective of?
Senator Bach.
Well, Madam President, Senator Limmer, that's exactly why this language is permissible. Two things. One, a municipality like Edina or Lakeville or Richfield, who have munis, probably wouldn't do this. But other municipalities could. And Senator Lemmer, I just want to say this is only in the 7-county metro area, this amendment, so it doesn't apply everywhere. But members, the little mom and pops are going to be gone anyway, because they're not going to survive this, because the big boxes are going to take it all. So, you know, why not give people what they really want? Let's get to the efficiency. What is the point of the Cubs and the Costco's and Walmarts all building an attached building with a separate entrance? Let's just let them put it in the aisle like they do in Wisconsin. And I think it'll be very, very popular.
To the amendment, Senator Miller.
Thank you, Madam President. The language in House File 30 is very narrowly focused on allowing liquor stores to be open on Sundays. Senator Bach, I appreciate the amendment. However, the amendment does significantly expand the scope of the language in House File 30. Therefore, I believe it should have a committee hearing, and I would respectfully ask members to vote no on the amendment.
Further discussion of the amendment, Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I too would ask for folks to vote against this amendment. I think it expands the scope of this bill drastically, and I think it's starting going down a slippery slope that at this point in time I don't think we should be going down.
Senator Bach.
Madam President, members, this is where we're going. This is where we're going. I'm going to read you something. And it's something that's always been kind of special to me. I came upon it years ago, and it was a little phrase written by a pastor from Germany. And he recorded it in his diary after he had spent 4 years in the concentration camps by the Nazis. And this is what he wrote. First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Members, that's where we're going. We are going to have an economy that only has big box stores in it, and this is a very, very slippery slope. So members, I just offered the amendment to give you an idea where we're going, because this is going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to be accelerated very rapidly, because the reason we don't have alcohol in grocery stores is because the little mom and pops have fought it off for years and years and years along with the munis. And as they go away, there will be nobody to defend us from the big box stores. And the big box stores will take it all.
Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, I'm not going to tell you how to vote on the underlying bill, but on the amendment, I would ask that you vote no. I served on Commerce every year, but this year, and I will tell you that in Commerce, we look at liquor laws just about every year, I'm sure every year. And I will tell you that we are careful and methodical, and I would say we operate at a snail's pace when it comes time to change our liquor laws. Nor am I saying that we should change Sunday sales even today, but I'm telling you that that's how we operate when it comes to liquor laws. You heard Senator Tory Westrom talk about the three-tiered system, and that's why. And so when I look at this amendment, that is not ready for prime time if you've worked that through the filter that we do everything related to liquor at a snail's pace. And so, members, I would recommend that you vote no on the amendment.
Senator Bach.
Madam President, Senator Gazelka are trying to conduct a kumbaya in this session. Our majorities are pretty close, so in recognition of the good relationship that we have, I'd like to withdraw the A53.
The A53 has been withdrawn. Further discussion on the bill, Senator, I'm going back to my list. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam President. To the bill, I just want to preface thinking about how the world has changed, certainly in our lifetimes. And let's think about 1935, when when we were coming out of the Depression, coming out of Prohibition, and this ban on Sunday sales was put into place. Let's think about that world a minute. Persia was renamed as Iran. Germany began to rearm and pass the Nuremberg laws to strip Jews of their civil rights. The Gallup poll was introduced. The cost of gas was 10 cents a gallon. A loaf of bread was 8 cents a loaf. The WPA started, the Work Progress Administration. It was the year that Social Security was enacted. And members, John Dillinger was public enemy number 1. Clearly, our world has changed greatly since 1935. In 1935 was the birth of swing by Benny Goodman, and the world was ready to boogie. Well, Benny Goodman is not with us anymore. His music is, but so is the law of that day, which I believe is an antiquated law. Well, those of you who know me well know that I'm not much of a drinker, don't like to have alcohol in my home. However, as our small businesses have said, and I do think strongly about them, I'm a small business owner myself, they have said that they will sell the same amount of liquor over 7 days that they do in 6. And they certainly may be right about that. Minnesotans have planned how their liquor purchases for the last 80-some years to not buy on Sunday. But again, our world has changed a great deal, members. We have people who are working all different days of the week. We have many different religions in our state. And I believe that the time has come for our ban on Sunday sales to be lifted. I will be voting yes. I think it's time. Actually, members, it's past time. And again, I believe it is an issue of freedom, and it's also an issue of time. This is not 1935. It is time that we move on and allow those businesses that wish to be open on Sunday to sell liquor. We must not mandate that any particular business be open. Again, that would be an overstep of government to mandate what a private business must sell or when. So, but this is an option for those that would like to be open. My constituents have spoken loudly about this repeatedly, that this is something that they would like to see. I'm listening, and I'll be voting yes.
Senator Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, a lot of good discussion gone on today with regards to the Sunday liquor, and I have to agree with a lot of what Senator Bach and Senator Westrom has talked about, and Senator Hall with regards to the given right, I guess, the freedoms we talk about, and I'm just going to bounce around here a little bit. When we're talking about freedoms and members, I guess, why are we even going to restrict the times? Why do we bother to do that? Why do we restrict 1 o'clock in the morning? Why do we restrict 2 o'clock or midnight being last call? So I'm not really following and agreeing that if we're going to do this wholeheartedly, then we should be opening it up for everything, local control or not. I do have an article on your desk, and it's kind of interesting because it came out about a week ago in my local press, Echo Press. And I'm not going to talk about the House members that were quoted in here. In fact, I was not called or quoted in this document, which was just fine with me too. They probably know where I stand on Sunday liquor. But it was interesting, the comments, and you can look through it yourself, but look at the bottom of the first page where this manager, the Alexandria's 2 own liquor stores, is a member of the Minnesota Beverage Association and Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association, who opposed the sale of Sunday liquor. And what kind of stuck out to me was the next paragraph underneath that is that Milgram offered one of the reasons he doesn't want a ban or want the ban to be lifted is Sunday's still a family day, at least for me and the rest of my staff. Then he goes on to talk about it's going to be really tough to find people to work on Sundays because, frankly, they still do have it in their mind, members, whether you think so or not, that Sunday is a day off, and it's going to be just tough to do that. That's when family events go on. That's when people go to the church to worship. It's just one of them days they like to be able to have off before starting in on Monday. He also talks about what Senator Baca talked about. The reason to be going to across the border is because the taxes on the liquor are cheaper in Wisconsin. This isn't going to stop them. If they want to buy cheaper booze, Sunday open liquor isn't going to really matter much. They're still going to go over for that sale, for that reduced rate. They're going to go to Wisconsin and do that. Then you get into this it's time thing. Boy, you know, it's just time. Members, alcohol and tobacco are the biggest killers in society today, over and above even illegal drugs. You've heard me banter on and on about that over the years. Some of you new members are going to get a little bit today. It does. It is the big killer when we're talking about drugs. Alcohol is still your biggest one. So I envision myself, and everybody in this room probably has their place of worship that they go to on Sunday. And they're looking forward maybe to the game or looking forward to family dinner at home, maybe getting together with family. And when I'm coming from church where I sometimes pick up my 4.5-year-old, and she says 4.5 because it's important for her to be a little older than 4, soon 5, she will sit in the back seat and I will grill her and I will ask her, what went on in Sunday school today? I mean, that's what you should do as a parent and as a grandparent. And we'll probably get into the discussion, and maybe halfway through that discussion, I'm going to come up to the liquor store and say, well, wait a minute, sweetheart, I'm going to have to step into the store here for a minute and buy something. Also, in my Sunday go-to-meeting clothes that I wear, I've got to stop by and get a bottle of booze or a couple of cases of beer. And I'm going to interrupt that family discussion by going in and doing that. And when they get back in the car, she's going to say, Grandpa, what did you buy? Members, are we sending the right message? Really? Anybody who knows? I don't think, if I'm going to ask for a raise of hands, and I won't do that, of all members in this body who have been affected, their families have been affected by alcohol or even drug abuse. If there isn't anybody in this room to put their hand up, I don't think I'd see any hands go up. Members, this is it just goes against the family, the Sunday family events. Maybe we could have a decent conversation. We continue to have a decent conversation and not get a 0.10 and 0.12 where all of a sudden now our politics change and everything else changes. And this is all being done in front of our kids and our grandkids. And this is on Sunday. I think this is a bad idea. I always have. The author of the bill knows that. I don't think it's any secret. So members, I ask that you consider all the things that before you open it up on Sunday. Not only the small liquor stores, as Senator Bach talked about, are going to be losing revenue. Municipals are going to be losing revenue, and I think some of our smaller liquor stores in rural areas are going to be going out. They're going to be dropping, and it's not a good deal. I'll finish up with this. My daughter works for the county, and she works with drug and alcohol abuse people through the county system. And I asked her, I said, would Sunday liquor make any difference to anybody? She said, no, not to the drinkers, not to the alcohol abusers. They're going to find a way to get their alcohol. They're going to be prepared. They're going to have that. It's not going to matter one bit. But she said it does seem kind of funny that we would have to have it on Sunday. Family-wise, she doesn't understand why we do that when we have it open all the other places. So members, really consider your vote. Consider what the families, consider what the young people are thinking when we can't take one day away from buying liquor. I think it's sending the wrong message, and I think it's well worth a lot more discussion.
Senator Jensen.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, for me, this bill doesn't have any particular thing to do with alcohol, any different than if it'd be donuts or gas. When I grew up, I remember Mondays were the days the barbershops were closed, and Sundays you had to be careful about running out of gas. I remember when you drove on Christmas or New Year's, if you didn't get gas ahead of time, you might run out of fuel. For me, I don't think we should be choosing winners or losers. This isn't about someone's going to have higher overhead, someone else is going to bigger revenue. For me, this is about artificially constraining the free marketplace. And whenever we can, I think we should try to get government out of the way and let people make their own decisions. About 15 years ago, we were encouraged at Catalyst Medical Clinic to start an urgent care clinic in a grocery store. Other hospitals and clinics had been asked if they would like to do that, and they'd said no. After some deliberation, we decided to go ahead and start a clinic. And we limped along, and we really weren't seeing enough patients on the evenings and on Saturday and Sunday to make it work, but we just kept limping along. And then Target moved into town. And I knew that there was no way I could compete with Target because there wasn't enough for a small clinic, and we were the only one open at night. So I called the Target folks up, and after a bit of a circuitous route to the people that made the decisions, I said, "Are you going to have a Quick Med in your Target store in Waconia?" And they said, "Yes, we are." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, we'll close down. It doesn't make any sense." I didn't come to this body and ask them for some sort of favor, or close it down, or don't let them do that, or don't let us open on Saturdays or Sundays. So when I vote yes on this bill, this isn't about donuts or gas or alcohol. This is about personal liberty. It's about freedom. It's about not constraining the marketplace. So this isn't a difficult vote for me at all. I'd say government, try to get out of the way whenever you can. Thank you.
Senator Ralph.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm new to this, but it's my understanding that the job of this body is to primarily find things that are broken, provide solutions that fix what's broken, and carry forward so we create a body of laws that's not overly restrictive, but that guides people, that helps us grow in society. My question today is, what's broken? People can obtain alcohol and have been doing it this way since Methuselah, since we finally decided that the total prohibition against alcohol was wrong. And today we have spent, at last count, just a little over an hour talking about things that, to me, didn't speak to what was broken. It spoke to things that maybe might get broken if we let this go through. It spoke to things that might happen. I submit to this body that the law that we have today works. It does protect small businesses, as Senator Bach has referred to. I, too, am familiar with that, both having drafted liquor legislation for a very small community and be concerned with the interplay between the municipal and the local establishments. The system works, and while the, I suppose, libertarian in me would want to say, you know, let the chips fall where they may, that businesses should be able to operate any way they want, I think we know that's not necessarily the way society works. So I just would ask us all to think long and hard about government stepping in or not stepping in, and to consider very carefully what's broken. And is what we're doing fixing anything that's broken? I will be voting against this bill. Thank you.
Senator Isaacson.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to offer the A55 amendment.
Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Isaacson moves to amend House File 30 as amended.
It is
page
one-
1 after line 16. This is the A55 amendment.
To the amendment,
My
Senator
apologies.
Isaacson.
Thank you, Madam President. I was under the mistaken impression this amendment was going to be offered, and I feel strongly about it. It's simple. It just says 50% of the liquor sales tax collected from Sunday off-sale sales shall be appropriated to the Minnesota Department of Health to fight or to address alcohol addiction programs. I think that we've heard a lot of folks here talk today about some of the problems we have when it comes to addiction and the way it affects people's families and lives. I think we can look at, and I've heard statistics that talk about how it's $1 billion cost in our state, yet we collect a very small amount of revenue from sales tax on alcohol. So I think that if we're going to do this and we're going to make alcohol available for everybody, then I want to see us offer some money to fight the addiction problems that may come from that. So I hope that you'll support my amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion to the amendment. Senator Limmer.
Madam President, I would suggest that this particular amendment is not germane to the bill. It goes in a new direction and talks of where we spend money and the sales tax that's generated from it. A significantly different purpose.
Further advice? Senator Isaacson.
I don't quite understand how it isn't germane to the bill. The bill will create a sales tax revenue increase. There's no doubt about that. We have a sales tax, there's tax on alcohol, it will create a sales tax increase. Inherent in the bill is that increase. And the reality is that I want to just make sure that if we are having an increase in sales tax revenue, that it is directed somewhere completely within the confines of what the amendment's talking about. The bill is talking about making Sunday sales possible for alcohol, and I'm saying when that happens, it is eventually going to create revenue, and I'd like to see that revenue go somewhere. So it falls right within the scope of the amendment and or the bill. So I hope that you'll see that point is not well taken.
Senator Senjum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, this amendment's about tax policy. The bill is about commerce policy, two different subjects. I would recommend you find it not germane.
Further advice? Further advice? Senator Miller.
Thank you, Madam President. And to Senator Isaacson, I certainly support your efforts, and I'm willing to work with you on this. I'm not sure that we should be doing this on the Senate floor. I do believe that this should go through committee. So I know the President's going to make her ruling, but regardless of the ruling, Senator Isaacson, I'm more than happy to work with you on this if the bill were to pass today on the Senate floor.
Under Senator Limmer's point of order, the point is well taken and the amendment is not germane. Senator Isaacson.
Madam President, I'd like to appeal the ruling of the chair, and I'd like a roll call.
The ruling of the chair has been appealed. Okay. The question is, shall the decision of the President be the judgment of the Senate? It is a vote to sustain the ruling of the chair. A green vote is to sustain. A red vote is to not sustain. The Secretary will take the roll. Secretary will close the roll. There being 35 ayes and 31 nays, the decision of the President is sustained. Further discussion to the bill, I will go back to my list. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Madam President. It's a little ironic that my first speech on the floor here is about liquor. I grew up in the liquor business. My family has an on-sale liquor establishment since 1933. For those of you, that goes back to Prohibition. And as well with this subject, I've tried to stay neutral, listening to both points of view. I was also the mayor in the city of Faribault, and we've had our own liquor code in place that allows liquor sales. Actually, we refrain some of the liquor times until 8 p.m. on Monday through Thursday, when the state actually is at 10 p.m. Just recently, before I came to the Senate, that vote came up again, and I actually was the tie-breaking vote that kept the liquor hours the same until 8 p.m. on Monday through Thursday. And again, I've listened, tried to stay neutral in this topic. I've listened to my constituents and have got an overwhelming response to free this up and let it go and vote on it and be in favor of it. I think as coming into the Senate as a new freshman, what we heard at the door was get things done. But I also got comments from my people, why are you talking about this? We have better things to discuss on the Senate floor than Sunday liquor sales. And for that reason, I'm going to vote in favor, because I think we need to pass this on, take the vote, I should say, and see what happens. There's good points on both sides. Senator Bach brings up some very good points. I'm a small-town local guy. I understand how it affects the local liquor stores. We also have a community of lakes and campgrounds and things like that. And we have a lot of people coming from other states that want to come in and get a 12-pack of beer and bring it to their campsite. They don't know because they come from the surrounding states that don't have these laws, so they get a little frustrated. They can't go out and buy a 12-pack of beer to sit around the campfire or something like that. So I want to commend Senator Miller for bringing this forward. I have kept very neutral through the whole thing, but in the recent weeks, by the support of not only my constituents, both House members voted in favor of this as well. I will be voting in favor of the topic today. Thank you.
Senator Little.
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to address the comments that are being made about the all or nothing approach to the sale of alcohol. We're not here to take an all or nothing approach that's been tried in our history, as we heard earlier, and it doesn't work. So our main job here is to find balance. And I think on the moral question, our society has already answered that question, which is drinking on Sunday is okay. The bars are open, you can buy growlers. Certainly anybody watching the Vikings is having a drink. So we've decided this question. On the economic one, I think folks have to decide that for themselves and what's best for their area. There's certainly some on and off sale businesses that would benefit from this, since they're already open on Sunday. But in this idea of balance, that means we don't have to open up the whiskey floodgates to grocery stores. There's a significant difference between access to adults and access to minors. So I would urge a yes vote on this bill. Thank you.
Senator Senchum.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I am and have been somewhat torn on this issue because in some respects I don't care a lot. And that's the truth. But and in fact, I did vote for this a couple of years ago. Today, Madam President, I'm going to reverse that vote. I'm just thinking about my own life. I don't think in my entire life I've ever absolutely had to buy a bottle of booze on Sunday. You know, probably didn't need one on Monday either. But certainly Sunday, I don't recall an experience where that's been something that's created a real hardship in my life. And by the way, Madam President, if this bill passed anyway, and I think it was referred to in the introduction, in my particular city, Rochester, Minnesota, I couldn't buy it anyway because it's precluded by ordinance. Not only certainly Sundays, but Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, none of that's permitted by ordinance in Rochester, Minnesota, and that might well be true of a lot of other cities. So, you know, for Rochesterite, it's not going to do a lot of good to let this one loose, so to speak, unless they want to go to the city council and have that overturned. But I would say this, I guess any desirous drinker that can't plan well enough, isn't smart enough, isn't able enough to buy their booze on Saturday night, probably shouldn't be drinking on Sunday anyway. And so I'm going to vote no. I think we can get along just fine in Minnesota with a Sunday ban on sale on liquor sales. And by the way, if they want to drink, there's always a bar to go to.
Secretary will give the bill a third reading.
House File Number 30, a bill for an act relating to liquor permitting off-sale intoxicating liquor sales on Sunday.
Further discussion, Senator Benson.
Thank you, Madam President. And I wasn't going to speak to this issue, but we've had a little nostalgia about Sundays, and we've had some interesting historical narrative. I'm reading the Little House on the Prairie series right now. They used to sit and do nothing on Sundays. The state of Minnesota came into being in an era when we sat and did nothing on Sundays. And so, while I sometimes pine nostalgically for driving to the neighbors and playing cards on Sunday, it's not how we live now. People skip church to go to hockey tournaments. Basketball practice happens on Sunday afternoon. And so times have changed significantly. And it's time for a little update, I think, to our liquor laws. This isn't a big deal to me, wasn't a big deal to me, but you know what? Every once in a while, after church, somebody says, hey, do you want to join us on the boat? And I can pick up potato salad, I can throw together some sandwiches, but I probably can't get a summit on Sunday. Now, Senator Metzen was very nice, God rest his soul, was very nice to offer to me that if I ever needed something on a Sunday, I could call him and get the security code to his house. But we don't keep a lot of alcohol in our house, and so sometimes it would be nice. You know, even visiting my parents at the lake, you unexpectedly are getting company on a Sunday because it's 90 instead of 70 because the weather forecasters got it wrong, and it would be nice to be able to host someone. It's never a crisis, it's just a nice thing to do. And so with that, members, I will be supporting this bill. Thank you.
Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, first of all, I'm not going to tell you how to vote. There's a lot of passion on both sides of this issue, and even within my own district, I've had a municipal say don't do it, a few liquor stores say don't do it, at least one liquor store do it. And then all of my constituents that have nothing to do with it other than a drink, most of them say do it. But why now? Why today? I got to tell you, as Majority Leader, a number of times every week, somebody wants to know about Sunday liquor. Not the budget, not the health care crisis, not roads and bridges, Sunday liquor. Our February budget forecast comes out tomorrow, and I would prefer this vote be done, and either it passes or it doesn't pass, and we move on to the budget and some of the other things that we have to get done. If it passes, I'm rolling up my sleeves and working on all those other things, and I'm not looking back. If it fails, don't ask me to bring this up this year or next year. Well, maybe the year after that we'll talk about it when we have a new House. But so let's let it go. Whichever way it goes, you can vote your conscience, vote your constituents, but let's take a vote.
Senator Miller.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, members. Appreciate the discussion today. House File 30 gives liquor stores the option to be open on Sundays, but does not require it. Current law would allow local municipalities to opt out if they so choose, or to limit the hours even further than what's in House File 30. Senator Senja made reference to a city that already has an ordinance in place to prohibit it, so they would have to act on that in order for liquor stores to be open in that case. Members, this is not an overnight phenomenon. This is 6 years or more in the making. I remember when my good friend, former State Senator Roger Reinhardt from Duluth and I, along with others, began working on this our first term in the Senate back in 2011. We've put in a lot of time and effort on this issue. What we haven't heard a lot of talk about today is the people. Members, we've been hearing loud and clear from our constituents that it's time to get this done. This is the strongest grassroots effort by the people that I've seen during my time in the Senate. And members, today we have an opportunity to show the people that we're with them on this issue. So I encourage a yes vote, and let's show the people that we can get this done.
Secretary will take the roll on House File 30. Secretary will close the roll. There being 38 ayes and 28 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.